All right, guys, welcome to the Friday GPP Strategy Show. I'm bringing my buddy, my co-host on Lulz, Brian Hooper, back into the strategy realm, pulling him out of the comfy confines of Lulz. Today, we are going to release the Sims. We are going to run the Sims, all that good stuff. Let's do it.
I suffer from a debilitating condition known as atropic chokitis.
Peter's one of the greatest depositors I've ever seen.
Trust the process. Let's go.
I got auto matched with Levitan. This is bullshit.
If I just go the other way in that 66, I win all the money. All the money.
If I had 150 lineups, I'd win too.
Process over results.
Illuminati make a bitch go crazy. I don't know which one of these my baby. Bust out AP, close 5 bullets in your head like KD. Bust it, bitch go bust it. And I had 10 pints with me in Russia.
Hey everyone.
Should I make an intro for Lulz that's just chess is okay, just like going off on people, and I just add some like gun noises and fire breathing noises?
That'd be perfect. Yeah, you should do it.
I feel like for those of you guys didn't see, Brian and I did an interview on Wednesday on Lulz. You guys can check that out. Video versions on both of our YouTube streams. You can check out the audio with a former high stakes DFS reg known as Chess is Okay. And he absolutely teed off on a lot of people in the industry. Brian was feeding him names and he was not holding anything back. What has been some of the reactions you've gotten from that show?
Not a lot. I don't know. I don't know if you've seen any, but Big T wasn't thrilled that he didn't know who he was, but I think he was kind of just playing around.
I've gotten some DMs from mainly successful DFS players saying how much they enjoyed that interview. Just because I don't think there's not really a platform for players who don't have an online, presence to where they kind of can go and talk about the stuff. It's like, okay, you're either going on a show like this to talk strategy, for the week, or you just kind of maybe have a few tweets out there. So I think the fact that we've been able to pull some of these guys out of obscurity and give them a platform is very fun for a lot of the DFS high stakes community. Yeah,
it was fun for us, I thought. And hopefully we'll bring him back on for another show in a couple months or something, whenever he's ready. It seems like there's some bad blood between him and Ricky D, though. That one doesn't seem like. I knew he was going to get some blowback. I mean, he was breathing too much fire to just come out of that all roses. But if you weren't in the crosshairs, you seemed to enjoy it. Yeah, right.
I don't know. Maybe Mock Lovett wants to come on the show and defend himself after that. If we just want to be a clearinghouse for DFS gossip.
Yeah, and if he wants to just defend himself, fine with us. We're not out to get anybody. I've never seen him do an interview though, so who knows?
Yeah. Yep. I guess this is our, as usual, if you're a high stakes reg who isn't overexposed in the DFS content world, feel free to reach out. We'd love to talk to you. Yeah, we've had a nice string of guests. We had Ricky D on, we had Whistles, we've had obviously Chess is Okay. So it is fun to hear from these guys. Who would be another wish list guy for you if you could pick any DFS guy to just kind of pick their brain for an hour?
I don't. There's not. I mean, there's not a ton of guys whose brains I want to pick. Really, I don't think. But
not even from that angle. Just that you think would be interesting to talk to.
I think Kandia or Sahil.
Yeah.
Yeah. See what happened with Sahil would be interesting to find out. And just Kandia's experience being, the original stud in DFS and how all that went down.
Yeah, I think, Kandia's done a couple interviews. I know he did one with Levitan on the DFS podcast a few years ago. I want to say Sahil did a couple too, but pretty low profile and haven't been in the spotlight for a while now. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and maybe I've missed some that it's already out there, but off the top of my head, those two guys. I mean, we have a lot of good guests already, so I wouldn't mind having guys back on again. Yeah,
too.
we're pretty lazy with booking guests for that show, and so it makes it really easy when these guys reach out to us to come on. But excited to have you here on Lowell's. We do often get distracted. We'll be talking about NFTs, crypto, sports betting, politics, whatever comes to mind. But on this show, I wanted to pull Brian over and really dive into GPP strategy. Of course, Brian runs his own simulations. Last year, Brian came on the show, and it was the week that the Jets played the Chiefs, and Brian shared 10 simulated lineups for the SPY. And the lineups, and I don't want to set expectations too high, but the lineups you shared last year were like quite literally the nuts.
Yeah, that's pure luck. I mean, not pure luck, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Do not expect first of all, you're not supposed to dupe us, bros. You guys know that. So, but don't expect these lineups to go off like that. Like Naheem Hines was in one of them.
Yeah.
He had like 2 touchdowns or maybe even 3. It was ridiculous. At like 1% owned. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. It is funny because in the spreadsheet you sent me over, there is a column that says dupes in it, and they all say one. They say 1 right now, but I'm worried after this show that dupe number might need to be changed.
That's true. Yeah, maybe just delete that column right now.
I also can't help but notice, are you back at the lake house here?
Yeah.
Right.
And also too, like, we're not going to go into these lamps yet, but fair warning is like, there's injury news and stuff and updates, and there's a very good chance that none of these lamps are going to make it by Sunday at noon. You know what I mean? So
yeah. And
I'll be entering like 5 minutes before kickoff, my final 150.
Yeah,
so.
And I'll piggyback that because I was writing the Fantasy Life newsletter this morning, and I was doing a roundup on the Thursday practice reports. And the number, I will quickly read off for you all the studs that did not practice yesterday: Lamar Jackson, Chris Carson, DK Metcalf, Christian McCaffrey, Joe Mixon, Mike Williams, Allen Robinson, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, Josh Jacobs, Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Parker, Kenny Golladay, and Saquon Barkley. So like, there's a lot of stuff that can change between now and then. But to me, what's interesting about looking at the sim results is just seeing, okay, what kind of correlation is it putting in this week? What kind of, game stack stuff is it doing? Is it putting in a guy who's really high owned because he projects as such a good play? To me, the kind of texture of the lineups is what's most interesting there.
Yeah, for sure. And just the general strategy ideas and discussion and stuff like that. Can always pour it over on Sunday and figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. This is a funny question considering a DM you sent me earlier this morning, Brian. Ryan wants to know, what do you do with the Bears backfield? No Damian Williams. Brian sent me a DM that said, who the fuck is Khalil Herbert?
As a Bears fan, I mean, I'm not much of a fan, but like, I'm in Chicago. And
see,
who the fuck is this guy?
I came under some of the same heat that I think you've gotten before. I admitted on ship chasing the other night. I said I go to the sauna in the gym sometimes on Sunday afternoons, and I'm not just a football guy stuck at my screen. And I got a lot of blowback for not being a red zone completist, Brian. Even though you're not a football guy, you still watch most of red zone, though, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm getting smashed, and it's like, I don't know, the second half of the second afternoon games, I might turn it off and just not watch the carnage, finish off.
Yeah.
But if I'm winning, I'll probably keep watching it. Red Zone's great. I like the first half better than the second half.
Yeah. Oh, so you're not a fan of the witching hour?
Well, the witching hour, though, that happens in the first half too,
that's
right?
True.
Isn't it? Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in this week's particularly brutal. I think we have only 3 of the 4 p.m. games now that buys have hit.
And then you're getting into too much. I do not want to hear the announcers talk. I cannot stand NFL announcers. They're so bad. So, like, when you're down to like 2 games or 3 games in the afternoon, it's like, this is like watching a real game.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
The only way I can even watch an island game is one on mute and on a second screen while I watch it. Like last night we were watching Survivor, and then I had the game on mute on a second screen. And that's the only way. I mean, I can't do the announcers and commercials. I'm sorry. I don't love football that much.
Yeah, no, it's the new media platforms have ruined it completely. I stopped liking it a long time ago. But the announcers are so brutal, and like they're getting it because they put the Manning brothers out there, right? So like
Yeah, and
they know
everyone loves it. Yeah.
they know like, okay, the old school scheme people aren't liking. Let's like try something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't stand the NFL announcers. I think they're the worst announcers in all the sports.
It's pretty bad. All right. Before this veers too much into a lulz episode with us going on one of our textbook rants about how the sports media industry needs to be overhauled. Have you been 150 maxing most of the showdown slates?
Yeah, getting smoked. Yesterday, I don't know if you played. It was like 500 people duped first or something like that. It was a lot.
Yeah.
And if that happens, I'm going to lose almost every penny I put in.
Yeah. I mean,
I didn't even look. I probably got back like 5%.
And I would say, yeah, even last night when we were running the sims and looking at the product owned for the top lineups, I mean, they were, off the charts, the amount of ownership all the top lineups were getting, where we've had a decent amount of slates where it's like, oh, the product own is, sub 10%. Oh, maybe this will be a good spot. But last night just seemed like it's set up for a chalk smash, and that's what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I'm dead. And I don't understand like people posting that like it's like they post it as like a joke, like, oh, I won $1 million. It's like, dude, are you sure you're plus EV here? Like,
right,
duping that much.
Is that the ultimate, the double own? Chess is okay. Already told us if you're posting screenshots, that's a bad side about you being a winning player. Then on top of it, if you're bragging about having your lineup duped, then you're really in trouble.
Right. Yeah. Now, I mean, to give them the benefit of the doubt, like sometimes like my stuff doesn't work, like isn't right or something like that, and I get some high dupe lineups by accident. So I mean, it's possible, but yeah.
Why don't we maybe? I know you hate how much I talk about dupes, but why don't we reset the conversation for people who might be coming into the dupe convo late? Why is making sure your lineup is not duplicated so important in DFS and specifically Showdown?
Okay, so in regular Classic, you generally don't have to worry about it too much. But just because there's so few combos in Showdown, combinations of players to choose from, that you're going to dupe with other people more frequently. And the larger field of GPPs, it can be a ridiculous amount of dupes, like 1,000 or 2,000 times a lineup could be duped. And so if you just like kind of do the math in your head, first place is $100,000, divide it by 2,000 now. So even if you do bank, you're going to be getting back, pennies on the dollar compared to just shipping it on your own. And so there's a give and take there too. You don't want to just put in complete garbage lineups. So you have to find that happy medium of low dupes, but without just, throwing your money down the drain.
What do you say? Because sometimes I hear from people, you'll get the comments, you worry about ownership too much on the classic slates. You can play a couple chalk guys and you're not going to be duplicated. Like you said, that's not as big of a worry there. How do you then go from dupes to why ownership is bad, or why even eating a lot of ownership might be bad? Just kind of larger conceptual thought on that.
Sure. My first video I did on my channel kind of explains my idea behind how to explain ownership in DFS if they want to go check that out. But basically, it's if you think about you can only pick one player. Like, let's just say the game, you simplify, you make a toy game. So it's just one player we can all pick. And I'm sorry, just one position. So you could pick all the players in this one position, but it's just one position. So if you have the highest owned guy, every time he does bad, you move up in the rankings, right? If it's just one position, there's 100 guys picking from running back, and that's all you do. So like if you do, let's say for a fact that he's going to be owned. Let's say CMC is going to be owned 100%. All the other people are going to have him. Well, you clearly would take anyone else because first of all, you're going to be splitting all that money with all the other people if he does win, and if he doesn't, all of them lose, and then you take the entire pot. So, it's never as simple as 100% to none. So again, you're going to have to find some sort of happy medium there. But the higher owned the guy, whenever he fails, the more you benefit, just shooting up the standings.
Yep. How do you think about these examples? I feel like this year we've hit the point in the season where everyone is having a crisis of faith around Derrick Henry, even from very smart people hearing lots of, what if he is just different? What if Derrick Henry is so different that we do just have to play him at 40% ownership because he's a freak of nature? How do you account for someone like Derrick Henry who does, feel like a physical outlier in the game of football versus kind of just trusting your inputs on a week-to-week basis and doing what the math tells you?
I honestly, that's all I do. I don't go. So not to go back to the interview we just did, but with Chess, he said, I'm the API. I don't know if you caught that. So so an API, for people to know, is like you could pull in data into your Excel or R or whatever program you're using. And then you could pull in prop lines and spreads and player data and whatever you want. You can make your own. So he was saying he's going in there starting at noon on NBA games and making all the minute adjustments and all the things himself. And anyone who watches our show knows that I try specifically to not do that as much as possible because I don't like guessing, right? Like I'd rather take as much guesswork as I could out of it. So that's the way I do it. Is I don't go in and go, okay, Henry, like the prop lines are at 115 and they're set. They're not going higher anymore, right? All the projection sources say it's 115, whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I'm not going to go in there and go 130, 150.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fucking do it. I used to, like, when I first started, I would be more meddling in it, but I don't. And so, like, I'm just trying to build the best, process I can to take into account all the interactions that I can think of that don't ruin my computer, slow it down too much or something. And then those spit out lineups.
And I think that's probably where hand builders can get themselves into trouble the most, is double counting things, whether that is, maybe it is just double counting a narrative where I think one thing we often talk about on Lulz too, like if your projections are good, if you trust your projections, then there's nothing else you need to do to adjust them.
Besides ownership.
Besides ownership. But I'm saying, like, you can't add, a booster on Derrick Henry because he's quote unquote different.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I have nothing wrong with someone taking a stance. Like, if you want to take a stance and go, this is how our guy RBX88 does it. He's just taking stances and then letting it roll. So I have no problem with someone doing that. It's just not the way I want to do it. So
yeah. I saw Drico in the Discord had a question. You mentioned last night a ton of dupes on that showdown slate. On Sunday, we had the chalk absolutely smash. Cash game lineups were winning tournaments, had higher scores than any of my tournament lineups. He was asking, do you think that might be a product of more efficient ownership? Like, is the field getting more efficient and better with both projecting and playing the best plays, or is this just kind of the typical, variance we'll see throughout the course of the season?
Yeah, I think it's getting harder. And I guess Chess agrees with me. Like, a lot of people don't, though. So Osmo tweeted out not that long ago, he thinks the game's pretty easy. Big T thinks it's easier. I don't agree with that. The floor of how bad you are is definitely higher because you can just go and pay not that much money and get decent information now for projections and run the sims and all this type of that stuff wasn't there before. Like, it was tough, in, I don't know, 2016 or something, like just getting the right starting lineups, much less all this other stuff that does it for you automatically. So like when you drop off, when the floor raises so much, you know what I mean? That's a lot of dead money.
Yeah.
That you would just see, you wouldn't even notice. Like, you would be like, oh, okay, I broke even this week. When then now you're going to be losing, 25% or something, right? Where back then there's so many dumb dead lineups that your floor is higher. And so with the floor being higher, they're going to hit more. And there's a lot more ownership out there. And so people adjust, and it kind of like works itself out too. Cause like people are like, oh, well, James Robinson's 50% owned this week. That's too high. I'm going to go lower. And then so by Sunday at actual lock, he goes down to 41 where he should be or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it kind of like works itself out. So I think all those factors are happening. I mean, I really do. I still think it is beatable. And also too, like on the micro level, we talked about a lot, Pete, like in the SPY, the ownership is going to be different than what Osmo has projected.
Yep.
Cause he's projecting for a large field GPP. So if you know that Henry's going to be 75% owned in the SPY and everyone else thinks he's going to be 40% owned, that's some actionable information and some easy EV.
Right. And that was actually the follow-up question that Drico had. And it's a dynamic we talk a lot about on this show, especially in this small field GPP mid to high stakes. Everyone's consuming similar kind of content. There's this self-fulfilling prophecy element to ownership where the contrarian plays that get touted, Wednesday through Friday can become chalk by Sunday. We saw it 2 weeks ago with Odell Beckham. We saw it last week with AJ Brown. How do you kind of account for that in smaller field stuff, that almost like content steam that isn't going to be reflected in kind of baseline ownership, projections?
So I'm still honestly still constantly updating and adjusting. And that is a piece that I'm still working on where my lineups are more contest specific as opposed to what I generally do is I just make a good 150 lineups for like a large field GPP. And then any of the SPYs I'm in, I just throw one of them in randomly. And I know that probably sounds crazy to some people, but I don't think there's a ton of difference, honestly, in like my 10th lineup and my 50th lineup or something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't care. There is a difference in ownership. And so like, I really do want to dial it in and kind of get some more EV, that way. But like if you're in a 15,000 person tournament or the 30,000 slant, like whatever, like just enter your 150. Or if you're like doing what Osmo does, he enters 2 150s, so he has more diversification. So,
yeah, is it? I mean, for you, as far as, and I know you sim specifically based on contest. I mean, if you really boil it down, is it as simple as you can take on more ownership the smaller the contest is, or what kind of more nuance is there?
Well, it would be tough to like make a blanket statement. I think first of all, I'd have to run it honestly before I could totally tell you and see because there's so many different interactions. That's why I like doing sims. Is like for correlations, for example, most people, they just go to that 4-for-4 NFL correlation matrix in Google and they go, oh, okay, this is the correlation, right? And then it's a blanket correlation number across, multiple seasons. But it's like, okay, so you think, Darnold and DJ Moore are just as correlated as, I don't know, who's Mac Jones and Nelson Aguilar or somebody, I don't know, like somebody who's maybe third or fourth.
Yeah.
Just not as good as that type of connection. You know what I mean? Where these guys he's got a ton of target share. He clearly is number one. Darren Waller last year and Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Right. You think that he should be just as correlated as any other tight end? Of course not. Right. And so a sim will tell you that much. Same thing with the run bats. I think it's foolish to use a blanket correlation number for a run back. Mm-hmm. So like here, Pete, think about that. Why is a run back correlated? Like what happens? What makes that? So like a guy on my team, if we were on a team and I threw to you, I'm the quarterback, you're wide receiver, there's the correlation, right? We clearly
Correct.
See it. Why is it when the bring back? Why is that correlated?
The correlation is you are trying to identify a game where a bunch of points are scored. And if your primary stack is scoring a bunch of points, then the chance that the opposition is forced to play faster and hopefully also score more points seems more likely.
Okay. I from the studies I've looked into is it's basically point differential based. So the further behind you are, the more you throw it.
Mm-hmm.
And it varies, right? And it's also you have to take out like the last 2 minutes of quarters and stuff like that because that kind of skews the numbers. But like just a high score doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be running and gunning. But even so, like if it's a high score, they could just be naturally teams that throw a lot and score a lot of points too. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're correlated. What's correlated is I get up on you and you have to bomb it to come back, or vice versa. So not all games, or even let's just say we're both right, okay? And I think there is some truth in both of them. And so not all games are the same. So like if you look at it, okay, this guy's my run back. He has 0.7 correlation or 0.07, whatever correlation, right? Because that's what the matrix says. It's like, well, no, not really, because it's an even game and it's a low scoring game. So it doesn't seem like someone's going to get up big on someone else, and it's low scoring. So it's not 0.7 because he's not going to be in those situations. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so a sim will tell you, okay, this guy's really correlated with this guy. This game is good for these run backs, that type of thing.
And because kind of the point you're making is that I think this is probably an issue of double counting, where I look at, say, the Chiefs-Washington game and I see it has a 55-point over-under. My brain automatically says, oh, this might be a good game to have a Washington bring back in my KC stack. What you're kind of saying is that's already going to be reflected in the projection for those Washington players, where the point differential in the spread isn't necessarily reflected in the projection.
I'm saying two things. That's one for sure, because you brought that up earlier, and that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Is so you have to know where you're getting your projections from. So you have to know what they're doing. So Osmo says on his site that he is doing it like with game flow in mind. So that would mean you're double counting. Because he's giving extra passes to the shitty team. In like a, I'm assuming. I haven't asked him this directly. So like if you go, let's just stick with DJ Moore. He's projected for 19 points. Just making up numbers here. Based on my projection system, Osmo's projection system, let's say. And then you go and like, oh, but I want him, and then I'm going to use him correlated with the other team or something like that. So that gives me more points. It's like, well, actually that's already in there. Just on a projection level.
Right.
So it's not necessarily giving you more, but what I'm also saying is just like, I'm sure he knows what he's doing, but just like for someone else who's either making their own projections or just trying to use game theory in general, it's like, okay, well, how do you know what correlation is good? You have to have some way of figuring this out other than just like bringing up the 4+4 correlation matrix, because in some games it's like just not that good.
Yeah.
Like and the passes are really spread out and stuff like that, and so it doesn't just mean, oh, this is wide receiver 1 and here's the ring back, I'm good.
How would you say then for us hand builders, I definitely use bringbacks as a crutch in just lineup building, and that it eliminates some decisions for me. What am I going to do with this random spot? Well, why is it not just a bringback in my stack? I was talking about this with Drewby. I used week 1 as an example where there was so much value on that week 1 slate that the bringback correlation you might have been getting probably wasn't strong enough to be better than just some of the raw value plays. Like, I know you do this all sim based, but for a hand builder, what would be some things you'd look at to know if you're forcing and being too fancy with a bring back versus just playing a different play?
I think it's a tough question to ask, but I would look at if the projections are the same. Let's just use the correlation, right? So like if you're deciding between stack X and Y, right? And their sum of projected points is, let's say, 35 or whatever, very close to each other, like just take the correlated one.
Yep.
And give yourself a little leeway too. Like, let's say there's a half a point or a point difference, and take the correlated one. You're probably better off. It's just, heuristically thinking, right? You're still kind of guessing, but yeah, if it's close, then go with the correlation.
Yep. And so then where the mind meld or the mind fuck starts to happen is, well, then, where ownership comes into that, because generally the best, let's just say bringbacks are generally going to be cheaper plays. I feel like just to make like a blanket statement, and the best value plays are generally cheaper too. How do you then factor ownership into that? Because those are moving the scales in different directions as well. Just like correlation is helping us, the ownership is hurting us.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, so there's 3 ways to do this, I think. One is like from the ground up simulation, right? The way I do it. The second one is you use either simulations or data or past history to build regressions and stuff, and then to apply those to your lineups and then sort through them that way. And then there's the game theory hand build bros. And with those guys, in my opinion, you're just guessing, and you're kind of guessing, at all 3 ways. But the hand build guys is like you're taking the game theory and you're kind of rationalizing your way through it and going, this is a correlation, so this is a good bring back. And so like that's not the end of the world. I mean, like some people could probably get really, really good at that too. So I'm not saying it's bad, but the more ownership, the worse it is for you. Right. Yep. So you want, it doesn't mean that you just want to go to the lowest possible lineup, but like keep in mind that, so like there's just a bunch of different ways. I mean, it's not how I do it, but there's a bunch of ways you could just cap ownership. You could, you could see what ownership is related to the optimal and keep it lower. These are just still guessing, but better than nothing.
Yeah. A question that Justin Freeman from Run the Sims had passed along, kind of piggybacking on our interview with Chess about 300 lineups. You just mentioned that Osimo will often run 2 sets of 150. He wants to know, how many plus EV lineups do you think you could make for a classic slate?
Lately, none. Probably, I don't know, like 30, like if a 30,000 person GPP, I imagine there's a couple thousand in there. I don't know. I'd have to look.
Yeah.
And I could look for this spy that I simmed out for you.
Yeah. Which size? Yeah. And we're going to pull that up in a second here, because I think that can be a good launch point into this week's discussion. The chat is on fire about Nick Chubb being out, which is another reason why these sim results could get dusted pretty quick.
Yep. So keep that in mind, guys. I mean, these things, it's basically totally worthless now at this point, right? I mean,
it's from you stealing the plays and trying to run them. They are worthless, but I think still instructive for kind of looking at the type of texture that these lineups spit out.
Okay, so out of the 2,200 lineups in this spy, 16 times 50. What's 16 times 50? Hold on a second.
16 times 50 is 800.
800 out of the 2,200 are technically plus EV. And just so for people who might get tripped up on that, what does that mean that those lineups are plus EV based on your sims? I can't really explain it without giving it away. So it's just like the way I build it.
Okay.
I could tell through like all the interactions that these lamps are better than the other ones.
Let's pull these up. So Brian sent over his sim results. And again, I'm gonna reiterate this. Please do not get caught up on specific plays. Okay. I'm more interested in looking at what kind of stacks is the sim putting in here. What kind of popular players are showing up a surprising amount of the time, stuff like that. So before you start yelling, we don't know if Jarvis Landry is going to play, let's just use this as a learning tool. why don't you tell people first off though what they're looking at right now?
Just the top 10 lineups. I did this before the show based on old data now that I would consider entering into the $200 spy. What is it, Pete? $200.
This is the $100 spy. You said 2,222 was the sim you ran. Yeah,
that one.
Yep.
50K to first.
Yes. And so we have, there's a few things on over. We do see the sim ROI, which I assume that was what you found the 800 lineups that had a positive sim ROI.
Mm-hmm.
And we have your kind of overall projections here. And then, the things that, jump out to me right away is most of these lineups are, you don't have any, there's no like optimizer rules in this where it's like force a single stack. The math is putting Derek Carr with Darren Waller, correct? Or how is that working?
Yeah, kind of. I can't tell you that either, but
okay. But then you do see some, like you mentioned, like there is something going on there where, Mac Jones, like if you just ran an optimizer with no correlation boost, no stacking rules, like you're probably not going to get Mac Jones and Nelson Aguilar in the same lineup. Like your sim is
right
for correlation.
Definitely. Yes. Clearly I'm doing something. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. If you just did a blanket optimizer with nothing, like you're going to get a whole bunch of random lineups.
And one other thing that is interesting to me here, unless I'm, scanning too quickly, I'm not seeing a lot of double stacks. I'm seeing a lot of single stacks. Is that maybe a trend you've noticed for this specific contest or size?
No,
sim?
I wouldn't put too much stock into that. It's just 200 man, 3-day early run.
Yeah.
Normally you'll see a lot of stacks. So, I'm not seeing any doubles. Is there?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. No, Lamar Jackson, Andrews, Marquise Brown.
Oh, you're right.
I didn't even know who Khalil Herbert was 5 minutes ago. So I'm not the best guy to be scouring through the double stacks here.
And is your sim accounting for, does this run have any kind of baseline projected ownership that it's accounting for?
Oh yeah. Ownership's in there.
Yeah, because I was going to say, one interesting thing to me about seeing Khalil Herbert there is he looks like he is going to be one of the more popular running backs on DraftKings. I'm seeing after Darrell Henderson and DeAndre Swift right now. And again, guys, this does not include the Chubb news, but he was the third highest owned. I'm seeing at about 17%. So if your sim is factoring that in, to me, that's telling me he's a pretty damn good play if he's showing up that many times.
Yeah. So like last week I had a lot, like 80% of Madison. So it's just because a guy's going to be 40-50% owned does not mean you want to fade him. We talked about this on Lowe's, Pete. Yeah. It's like everyone just like, you don't always want to be under or over or whatever. Like sometimes you want to be over and, a lot of times you want to be under, to be perfectly honest, but like you shouldn't just always be under.
Yeah.
Right. Like Madison, I think was a no brainer, right? With fairly late news, not really, but like that's going to save you 5-10% ownership. Right. So in just a smash spot, cheap.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. To me, it was, and this is where too, like the, the hand builder finesse versus the numbers, like with the Madison thing, because it is interesting in that Madison isn't quite for me, like full on Pollard territory where Zeke's out and you just know Pollard is going to get every single touch, because we have seen games in the past where Dalvin Cook was out, Madison was in, and the team got down and they weren't throwing the ball to Madison. So there were game script concerns, but when you looked at the projections, I remember looking at the ETR projection. He was like 2x the field just on a value metric. Like there's certain situations where it does truly feel like a free square, and there's not much that you can do about it other than getting that guy in your lineup.
You do a super useful hand build, like game theory approach with run the sims, where you sim it out and then you compare it to the ownership, right?
Yep.
This is a very solid strategy where you don't have to go building bottom up everything yourself and get over it. So like, what was Madison last week? Do you remember? Like, what chance did he have of being best and versus ownership?
I believe, you know what, this is, I don't even remember the number. I think it was up in the like 55 to 60% range. If someone in the chat remembers what the Madison optimal was, it might have even been higher at that. Corey says 50, I think.
50 owned or 50?
I think
optimal.
50 frequency in the optimal lineups.
And I think his projected ownership ended up being like 40 or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It depended on the contest. I know
he ended up being higher in a lot of contests. Yeah. But I'm saying like the GPP, projection an hour before kickoff, I think was around 40 something for most providers.
Yeah. It looks like it was about 50% owned, and then he was, 65% in the Sims. But I know the point you're getting at, and this is, the simple screener stuff that I'm looking at. I look at the value, the points per dollar I'm getting. I look at the ceiling ownership because I'm always chasing ceiling in these GPPs. Just ceiling. Then I'm looking at ownership, and then I'm looking at the sim minus the ownership, the frequency it appears there, and then just seeing who stands out. And just by running this on Sunday, at 12:30, you'll often see a lot of plays that it's almost like the air yards by low model, where it's like those guys are naturally going to be lower owned because they haven't been converting their air yards, yet the numbers point to them having a good game. It's the same stuff with the Sims. Like a lot of the guys who are going to pop in the Sims, you can find that differential is going to point to guys who haven't got steamed all week and are more kind of sneaky plays.
Yeah, for sure. I think with Madison too, he was like 5,500, right, or something like that. So like,
yeah,
you're 65% optimal and you're dirt cheap. It's like, and I don't remember what the ownership was projected, but if it was 45 or 50%, it's like, yeah, all right. Yeah. The whole point of that was, Pete, too. We're like, it's not, you don't always have to go under as well, Now I'm just like encouraging chalkitis, which I think people probably have already.
Yeah.
You really want to be contrarian, so don't get me wrong here. I think because we have a lot of, I don't know, I guess sharper guys who kind of ask us questions, and I could see them getting way too contrarian. It's like just play Madison, okay?
Yeah. Well, and the thing that really helped for me and why I like the simple screener is because sometimes when I think of bad chalk, you're thinking about the punt wide receivers or a cheap tight end or a defense where there is, well, we just don't know a lot of these wide receivers that are 3K are any good or not. There's so much randomness in tight end and defensive scoring. Like those lend themselves to bad chalk. I'm looking at Madison's projection, and he's projecting as the third highest ceiling running back on the slate at 5,500. So it's not like one of those things where you're just trying to get in a good value and he's capping your ceiling, like a guy like Darrell Williams this week, subbing in for that. Like Darrell Williams doesn't have a 30+ point ceiling, but Madison did. And that to me was a nice indicator. Okay, the value is insane and the ceiling is there to where not only are you just jamming in a good play, but like you might actually need him to win tournaments.
Right. Yeah, definitely. That's it. I thought the same thing and I was glad that when I ran my stuff, it's like he was in a ton of it. I'm like, okay, good. Because that's what I would assume. And a lot of times when you run something and it gives you like a completely surprising answer, it's like, okay, did I screw something up here? I'll have to go look through this. And it was nice to know that.
The Johnny's asking, I think I already know the answer to this question, but I'm going to pass it along to you. Do you have a roundabout number of total ownership you find yourself in? I assume he's talking about cumulative ownership in your classic lineups.
No. Yeah, because each week, I guess football is pretty steady, but each week you're going to have different, especially in Showdown too, like you're going to have different ownership totals.
Yep.
For a team, like with injuries and stuff like that, you could force more in. So here's what I would do for a tip. I would compare it to the optimal that week.
Yep.
Okay. So if the optimal ownership, the highest total ownership team is, I don't know, make up another team.
I ran them earlier this week. It was like 205 was
okay. There you go.
Or sorry, 122. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. It doesn't matter anyways,
yeah.
But yeah, it's like, so let's say 122% or something. Okay, then base it off of that each week and then kind of adjust as you're going through the season and look at other guys. Like how far off were they off the optimal?
Yeah.
And like, I'll tell you right now, you're going to want to probably be in like 80, 90, 100, something like that with a 122 optimal, something like that. It's just, this is again a general rule heuristic where you're still guessing. So keep that in mind and don't blame me if you lose.
And I'll say that, one thing that I've added to my process is the past 2 weeks, because I am hand building and I am trying to marry these two things of, hand building versus, relying on the math and the optimal lineups too, to show me like, what is the field? How many projected points is the field being able to get in? Is I'm plugging in my lineups and adding up my projected ceiling and my projected ownership for my specific lineups, and then comparing that to an optimal, and it's like, wow, I'm getting way more ceiling at less ownership. Okay, now we're cooking. This is great. Versus, holy cow, I'm giving up 30 projected points, which it almost was what I was doing in the lineup. I didn't play Madison. I had like one lineup where I kept a Chubb and Aaron Jones combo at running back. And I knew I probably shouldn't have done it just looking at how much projected points, but I was like, what if Madison gets hurt on the first carry? Maybe I can win a GPP. But I do think that kind of screener is helpful of just checking, am I being too galaxy brain?
Yeah, no, I agree. And this is part of that what you just said at the end anyways. It's part of that rationalizing hand build issue that I want to stay away from personally, but I understand why everyone else would do it, is like you can always go one more step in either direction, which you're probably going in that direction because you're biased. We're all biased. So it's like, I'm a contrarian, bro. So it's like, oh, well, Madison can get hurt. Ding, ding, ding. You know what I mean? Right. There's always one more thing.
There's always.
It's like, okay, yeah, or he could, or Cousins can get hurt, and then they're just going to give it to Madison the whole game. You know what I mean? Like, you go either way on this.
Yeah. And I think, one thing that can be helpful too is, say you have your stack you like, or your game you want to target, you can lock those players in an optimizer and then run it and see what is the optimizer trying to jam in around that lineup you've already identified, making sure that you're seeing at least what type of plays are jamming in the most projected points. And then you can kind of then go individually compare and say like, oh, I can make a pivot off of this chalky option, not be sacrificing points and gaining ownership in a positive direction by just making this little tweak. So I've been trying to marry those two processes more, because I know the first few weeks I had kind of gotten out and I was just like full on hand build. And I was like, wait, I need to make sure that I'm double checking these projections here.
Yeah, it's a perfectly reasonable strategy. Make whatever 3, 4, 5, and then pick one. Don't beat yourself up. Like a lot of times, the EV on these laps would probably, if you went back and reran it, would probably pretty damn close.
Yeah. So
and you guys are doing the late swap stuff too, so keep that in mind too.
For sure. And like, just as an example to give you guys, and again, we'll continue to caveat this, so much has changed, but earlier this week on ETR's first set of projections, I ran their optimal. It had a 205 ceiling projection and 122 ownership projection. I put Brian's top lineup here in, and it had 193 ceiling at 99 ownership. So almost over 20 points less ownership. And then you were sacrificing about 10 points of ceiling projections based on that. I mean, when you see that, that's kind of the trade-off you're willing to take, right? Where it's like 10 less points of ceiling, but I'm taking on 30 less percentage points of ownership.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The more projection you can get out with less ownership is a great little review process you can do. On showdowns too, you could see like, oh, my projected points were better than this other player, or my ownership was lower and my projected points were better. That's what you're really looking for. Yeah.
And at what point, like, I mean, obviously football's so random. One guy getting the touchdown versus another is a 6-point swing. At what point, I mentioned that was off by 12 projected points. I mean, that's 2 touchdowns that swing that lineup. That's how you win a GPP. 2 touchdowns go your way. At what point is too many projected points, do you think, to give up?
I mean, I'd have to run it and then look, maybe I can go through. So on that SPY, the lowest projected, and my numbers are going to be different than ETRs, obviously.
Yeah.
Was 116.
Yeah.
Was the lowest like made, and 121 was the lowest plus EV one.
121 lowest plus
And
EV.
yeah, and my highest owned highest projected was like 140
Okay.
for this. So what is that difference?
It's 20, a spread of 20.
Yeah. So that, and so if you're getting over that, like I don't know, so 30, and also it's the same thing with ownership, Pete. Like it's off the optimal, right? We're not, because it varies from week to week. So
yeah, of course. And I think that, to me, my big takeaway from all this stuff is we need to use the tools that we have. We don't have the, the full blown sim stuff that Brian has, but we do have Run the Sims, where we can see the sim for the full main slate. We do have ownership. We have ceiling projections. We can lock guys into our lineup. We can get a really good feel. We can do our best as hand builders to be the AI in the way that Chess is okay is, and use these tools to help us make the most informed decisions.
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely do, if I wasn't doing it myself, like, then I would do something similar to that.
Yeah. We have not talked a lot about this week's slate. And I don't even really think that's a bad thing, because so much is changing right now with so many of these guys that I know it's fun to discuss. Okay, maybe Odell becomes a pretty cool play now that, Chubb is out, but it's almost really tough to do. And I will say, different from last week, where we had the chalk condensing around Derrick Henry, around Devontae Adams, around the Cowboys double stack. I mean, before this news started coming out, like, I wasn't seeing a lot of condensing anywhere. The only wide receivers I'm seeing in the top 15 ceiling under 10% ownership are Mike Williams and Justin Jefferson, who are priced way up at 8,100 and 8,000 at running back. Now that Dalvin's in, he's going to get steamed. Joe Mixon will get steamed now that they say he's in. I'm like, I don't see ownership condensing anywhere for obvious leverage points. Do you?
Yeah, I'm looking at what I had here. I also had CMC in, and it sounds like through chat that he's out now too.
Yeah.
So it's tough to say anything now. Some of the guys who I did like was which it probably still be there, is Eckler.
Yeah.
And even though I have Hill in that number one lineup there, I actually have under on the field on him. I thought that was kind of interesting, which is another thing to keep in mind too, is, you might be under on a chalky guy, but still, you're still going to put him in some of your 150s, and it's not the end of the world, Yeah. You don't have to just eliminate them from your lineups, as a lot of people think.
And that's, I think that's the hard thing for hand builders. If you are only playing a few lineups, like I am, somewhere between 3 to 5 a week, you're almost necessarily taking huge stands, because if you play a guy in one lineup already out of 4, you're 25%, which is a lot of times going to be heavier than the field on a guy. So that's, I think, where it gets hard, of being like, how willing am I, go overweight, where if you have 150, it's pretty easy to kind of dial in your exposures.
We need some clarification on the Bears backfield, it sounds like, too, right? Or is Herbert going to get the majority of the carries? Has that been decided?
Yeah, so both Montgomery and Damian Williams are out, so I expect Herbert to lead the backfield, and I think Ryan Nall will be kind of the other guy who will get some touches.
Okay, all right. Well then, because I have he's going to be higher on than what the current projections are saying, so then that will change that. I have a guy I don't like, who I have in some of those lineups we posted, and Sterling Shepard I'm over on, and I'm not in love with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one as far as, coming back from injury. Kadarius Toney, had the really big game last week. He's cheaper than Toney. Just looking at kind of the value, he is one of those guys down there at 5,000 that is projecting as a decent value. And you always kind of get the injury discount on these guys who didn't play the previous week, an ownership injury discount, I should say. What
do you think? Aaron Jones is popping on this too. Again, it's going to change with the news, but what do you think about that one?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Like, Leone doesn't have him with a massive ceiling projection, I assume, just with how much AJ Dillon has been involved, and he doesn't project as like a great points per dollar play. but I think he's probably going to come in sub 10%. He was kind of the trendy leverage play last week with Devontae Adams being chalk, and then people get burned. And I imagine he'll end up being pretty sneaky.
Yeah. I'm not hating that. Ceiling projections are pretty strange.
Yeah.
Like I wonder, he does Sims too, doesn't he? So like that's the way I do it, obviously. So like it would tell in one of the Sims, whatever the highest one is, that's his ceiling, right? So like I don't have to guess. But I feel like Aaron Jones like clearly has a monster ceiling. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that's going to happen. It's pretty unlikely, but the guy, would it surprise you if you had 4 touchdowns?
No,
like,
no, because we know he's capable of doing that. And I think I think what would honestly be helpful for me, it is just natural for me, GPP bro, let me use ceiling projections. That's what I want, ceiling. But to me, it would be like, who has the biggest standard deviation between their ceiling projection and their median projection, right? Because that's what's most interesting. Because otherwise, I'm like, am I just putting in a different number set that's scaled relatively proportional to their median projection?
Yeah. And that's why I like Sim so much. I keep saying this is because it answers it for you. All the questions you have get answered in the Sims.
Yep.
Like, because those interactions are happening. And so Tyreek Hill is he's gonna catch it and it's gonna go further. You know what I mean? And then you add all that up compared to like a short route tight end or something. I don't know. Think of somebody who's only catching 2 yarders or something. Yeah, they both might have 12-point fantasy expected, but clearly Tyreek Hill can go for 190 and 3 touchdowns like he did 2 weeks ago or whatever.
Yep. I'm just pulling up here the current Run the Sims for the main slate. I don't know if we have the Chubb stuff updated in here, but one thing you'll notice, Brian, we are seeing a little Sterling Shepard here at 11.9. We're seeing some Marquise Brown in yours as well. So always interesting to see some of the.
Yeah, let's compare them. So I got Cup. Yep, Cup at 23%.
Okay.
What does he got?
19.5.
Yeah. Oh, and mine's different than his. Mine is just like what I would put in 150 lineups.
Right.
So his is optimal rates is not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill, I'm actually under.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier. So that'll be, who knows how that works. Let's see, Adams is a good one, huh?
Devontae Adams.
Wait, are they playing?
What's that?
Is he playing? Is Green Bay playing? Yeah, because they said Jones is. I don't have him here. Hold on. I must be way under.
I mean, he's priced up at 9,000. So, and he's going to get 20% of ownership.
Huh.
What do you have Darrell Williams at? I'm curious. It seems like your Sims are preferring Khalil Herbert in that same price range. I'm curious what rate he's showing up for you.
7, just under 7%.
Gotcha.
7.33% in the SPY.
Yep.
Like if I entered 150 lineups in the SPY.
Yeah.
For, I know obviously that's impossible.
Yeah.
So just under the projected on. What does he got? 11? Yeah, not too far off. And like I said, like this could, I could rerun this and it would be, maybe 8% or something, like slightly different.
Right. Exactly. Let's see here. Burger fan asking, does this simulate QB stack? So the simulation is including that in it, but the site does not spit out specific QB stacks.
You know what he could add to this very easily?
Yeah.
Justin, if you're watching, is you could put the correlations from the Sims, just, add another column or two. Mm-hmm. And the Sims will tell him.
Yeah.
And he's told us he does play-by-play. So it's going to be in there. I don't know if he does game flow. I can't remember what he answered on that. But at least the teammate sim correlation he could put in there. And then I would definitely do it, like to add value to the customers, because like I said, it's not the 4-for-4 blanket chart.
Right.
Like some guys are going to be more correlated, and it changes week by week with injuries and stuff.
Yep.
So like it'd be really sweet to have a column there. Like I guess he would have to do a new page, huh? And then have the quarterbacks with the main receivers.
Yeah.
Something like that. And then you could sort by correlation, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. I'd love something like that too, because a normal experience for me is I'm comparing, say, 3 Cardinals wide receivers. I'm looking at AJ Green, Rondale Moore, Christian Kirk, price similar, similar projection, similar ownership, like having an extra correlation tiebreaker there to kind of help you out on some of those decisions would be nice as well.
Yeah. And then, I mean, obviously I'm not the a coder, and he's not either, though. He'll pay somebody to do it too, but like it should all be in there. So it shouldn't be too hard for them to add it.
Johnny asking about a leverage column. We actually do have this within, so it's not within the simulator, but if you head over to the optimizer, once the ownership is getting updated later in the week now, just because so much stuff has changed. But once this shows up, you'll be able to sort by optimal leverage. Right now, it's just the same amount as opto rate because it doesn't have ownership to subtract from. But once this is in, you can sort by optimal leverage, and then you can kind of see which plays are standing out. So obviously, a guy like Devontae Adams is going to catch 20% ownership. He's going to have a negative 5% optimal leverage. Say Aaron Jones, though, a guy that Brian's been talking about, say he comes in at 5%. Right here is optimal leverage, or his optimal rate's 13.8. He's going to show 8.8% optimal leverage. So you can use and sort within the optimizer as a screener there. And you also have all the other things that I like to look at as far as projected ceiling and a few other options here, as well as setting your exposure. So that's where I would direct you for leverage. Brian, we do normally finish with building a lineup here on the show, which I feel like we can't withhold from the people. I should also mention we do have the DraftKings Deposit Kingdom League that is up. Let me refresh and see how many people we have in it. DraftKings hooked us up with a $10 rake free tournament. It was $350 last week, $400 this week, 286 out of 400. The link is pinned in this chat. Brian, as I've been doing with my guests, tell them why it's so important for players to seek out these rake free tournaments.
Oh God, people, if you don't know, that rake will kill you. So if you could do anything without rake, that's probably better than any piece of advice that you can get on any of the DFS shows out there. Free rake. On our interview with Chess, he asked me, I didn't understand him. I watched the show back. He's like, do you get 10 million down I thought he asked if I won 10 million in the season. But I was like, no, he was saying, do you get it down? Like, how much do you bet?
Oh, okay.
And I don't know what it is, but it's a ton of money. Like, you guys would cry if you saw the rake I paid over the years. I mean, I'm assuming I paid millions of dollars in rake.
I'm sure what you need, actually, you don't need this, but they now have, for Ethereum, you can plug in your your MetaMask wallet, and it'll show you how much gas you have paid in total.
Oh, cool.
And it is gutting.
I don't want to see it, I don't think. Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. If they had one of those for you, Bride, where you type in your DFS username and how much rake you played, you would probably flee the country.
Yeah, I'd be like, this is the government needs to step in. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. So yes, all this to say, it's pretty clear up here. 400 entries, $10, and we have 4,000 in prizes. You can go and compare that on other tournaments, and the difference between the entries multiplied by the entry fee minus the prizes, that is the rake. And there is generally a decent amount of it in these contests. So sign up. Let's get this filled. DraftKings told me they'll continue to make it bigger as long as we're filling this. So if you guys want bigger rake-free contests, fill this up as soon as possible, and we will get some bigger contests. Brian, let's start this off. I know this is outside of your comfort zone, hand building a lineup on a Friday afternoon, but the people demand it.
That's fine. It's okay because I have sent you 10 lineups. So at least we could start with something from there. How about that? And then we know there's some news here and then we'll change as we go. How about that?
Yeah. This is what happens to me now, Brian, on the showdown shows I've been doing. And now that I get simulated lineups from Run the Sims, I find my, let me build a lineup real quick. I'm like, okay, the sim likes this. All right. I just ended up putting in what the sim said, and then I'm not making any decisions myself.
I mean, there's some benefit to that. Like, I would never put here my number 2 lineup here, Tyler Henneke in there.
Yeah.
Like, I would never click his name
on your own.
You know what I mean? Like, it's never happening. So, like, it's good to know, like, okay, well, the sim says it, so I guess I could go there.
Exactly. All right, pick a stack to start us out. Maybe one from the simmed lineups that you would not mind clicking.
It likes, you know how I like to decide these things, Pete.
All right. Oh, God. Random.org.
All right. Random.org.
Brandon makes every decision in his life on random.org. Which cheese should I get from the grocery store, Brian? It puts in Gouda, cheddar, provolone, pulls it up. All right.
If you're 50-50 between provolone and cheddar, there's no reason you can't decide it this way. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 QBs to choose from here. All right.
This is riveting.
Oh, it's QB1. It's Derek Carr.
All right, Derek Carr it is. And in all of these sims, is Carr stacked with anyone other than Waller?
Okay. Now I have to know all the players on all the teams. And Aguilar's on the Pats now, right?
Yeah, it would be if we had like a Henry Ruggs in there, but I don't see him. A Hunter Renfrow. I think it's just a Waller.
Right. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that on Sunday when you redo it that you're not going to get a double stack either. So.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because in your Derek Carr lineup, we don't have a Denver bring back. Although in your second lineup with Taylor Heineke, we do have a one-off Cortland Sutton. I'm just going to go ahead and even though we talked about not having to force bringbacks, I don't know what else to do. So I'm going to play Cortland Sutton as a bringback in this game.
What's the spread on this game?
The spread on this game is Raiders by 3.5. Okay. Or sorry, Denver by 3.5.
All right, so not a great bring back correlation game.
Oh God, I just
the bigger the spread, the better the. All
right, this is just undoing everything I learned. I relapsed. I'm sorry, Brian. I'm taking Cortland Sutton out.
Let's get rid of Carr too. No, I'm kidding. No, leave Sutton in there. Let's just build it.
Okay.
Because I don't really want to do Ruggs or I don't know. What do you think, Ruggs or Renfrow?
Yeah, I kind of think that. And this is, again, just by my gut, but we haven't had that like 17 target game for Waller in a while. And I feel like a guy like Renfrow would he's been like leading the wide receivers in targets. And I feel like if we get the massive Waller game, it'll probably come at Renfrow's expense.
Okay. Well, then I'll make it. How about Aaron Jones then, since I know I want him in there. So
let's do Jones here. Aaron Jones, Green Bay.
He's questionable too. Jesus.
Yeah, but I think he's on the good side of questionable. He practiced on Thursday just in limited fashion.
I have my buddy, like my high school buddies, hang out this weekend. We do like once a year or whatever. And so Sunday morning is not going to be all this news and injuries. Ugh.
So the chat wants me to play Jacoby Myers. Your sim results were loving Jacoby Myers, and I don't know if you heard, Brian, but Jacoby Myers has never scored an NFL touchdown.
I've never heard that. That is incredible. I forgot. I was going to make a Jacoby Myers joke when we started the show. I forgot to do it. Yeah. It likes, I don't know. I mean, this is another reason why I like doing it the way I do it is like Pat's wide receivers and stuff like that. I would never play these pieces.
No, I'm the same way. I never want to click them.
But the sim says so.
The Sims say so. So that is what we do. All right.
And he is in there. He is in there. So what do we want to do about? Let's talk about running back now because we got the Chubb news. We got the CMC news. The Bears backfield.
I assume Kareem Hunt is going to become absolute mega chalk at 6,200 with no Chubb.
Right. Yeah. And what do we? What is the lineup? Ownership, let me check. I had it at 92, so fairly low.
Yeah. I wonder Hubbard is kind of interesting with no. Did he show up in any of your stuff? Or because you had McCaffrey in.
Let me look on. I was. How do you spell his name?
Yeah. CHUB.
Nice. I don't know. I can't find him on here.
Hubbard, HUBB.
Oh, you know why?
Why?
Because I have McCaffrey starting.
That's why. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So yeah, Hubbard. Hunt,
Should we do a
or
Herbert?
Bears. I don't know. I'll let you decide. I didn't even know who he was. Can I really legitimately?
This is how we stick it to the football guys: is we create a lineup so devastatingly good, and we don't even know who the players are.
I don't feel like I have any legitimacy putting him in the lineup, not knowing who he was.
Let's see. I mean, the other running back that I think a guy, because I'm just trying to think about now how the slate is going to shift, because Darrell Henderson was the other guy that was going to be, I think, extremely popular, but now Hunt, I think, will kind of take that spot from him. You mentioned Eckler.
Yeah.
I think he might, just with all the value opening up, might not be super popular at 7,900.
That's true. Yeah. All right.
Let's do Eckler. We're going to have to save at defense here.
Yeah. 7,900. Jesus.
I do see the Lions showing up in a couple, although they look like they're going to be pretty popular. Why don't we do, like, I don't know, the Texans at 2,200 to save money against Mac Jones, or against Carson Wentz?
Who I didn't have him in any of my top 10. I had Browns, Lions, Packers, Vikings, Chargers.
Okay, we could do Chargers. The problem is we're gonna have to get real creative because we are running out of money.
Yeah, we could always go down. The what this Sim's telling me is this week, like, defense doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So
does it ever?
No.
What? Okay, from the Sims, do you have any cheap value plays that are standing out for you?
A lot of Myers, a lot of Aguilar, Shepard. How much is Shepard?
Shepard is 5K.
How much is Mooney nowadays?
Mooney is 4,300. That would be a good play for us.
Okay.
Mooney was in the air yards by low model. I was reading stuff about Justin Fields has been mainly struggling when he's under pressure, which he has been a lot, but the Packers have one of the worst pass rush rates, success rate right now. So maybe Justin Fields has a little more time to uncork a deep ball to Darnell Mooney, and it leaves us with 4,100 here. Another great spot. Mooney
is correlated with Jones in your world. So
in my world, not yours. You disavow this mini correlation.
But then 4,100, I don't know what we can get there.
The chat is bringing up the double tight end week with Ricky Seals-Jones, and a couple of those were showing up in the Sims.
Yeah, he was popping.
It was the number one lineup, had the Ricky Seals-Jones, Darren Waller, so we could
it did, yeah.
All right, let's do that, and then let's upgrade defense. And then we can get up to a nice defense here. We could correlate with...
And then you want to switch Waller and Jones for late swap.
Look at you. You're a seasoned pro. Okay. Defense. I mean, we can get what's our favorite non-top 2 defense, because we can play them. Packers?
Yeah, I have the Packers. I have the Colts in the Sims. So
all right. There it is.
Either one, whatever you like.
There it is, folks. The nuts. We built the nuts, even though information is changing in real time. Brian, thank you for coming on the show. I know you are so reluctant to give up the goods, but I think I pulled a decent amount out of you today.
Maybe we got to do it a little later, so the lineup can actually hold up till Sunday, because those lineups aren't going to be accurate at this point.
It's about teaching how to fish, Brian, not giving them the fish.
That's true. Yeah.
A
wise man once said.
Yeah. Release the fish. No, we teach you to fish. Brian, you are on Twitter at Brian Hooper, and then a weird underscore thing. 2
underscores. There's too many Brian Hoopers on the planet, apparently.
You can watch Brian and I, or listen to us on Lowell's. We are there every week at 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. If you want to kind of follow up on some of these more evergreen DFS concepts, Brian has a library of videos on his YouTube channel where he digs into a lot of this stuff on ownership, on leverage, on bankroll management. So I highly recommend, if you are just wanting to learn or solidify some of these concepts, these are evergreen. They're not changing. I mean, some stuff will, but I think they hold up pretty well, Brian.
Yeah, I think so. I think I wouldn't change them yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, check them out. They're not very long either, so it might help you.
Anything else you want to plug here? Maybe your cheese order at the grocery store that you'll be using random.org for?
Our pod is up with chess, so if you guys do the audio version only, try to subscribe to that, please. We're trying to build that one up. We're getting like over 1,000 downloads on the pod audio, so that's pretty sweet. When we first started, we were only getting like 190 total views and shit. So
yeah.
And I have a website, it's BRIC75.com, where I do like free ownership for PGA and MMA. Although, like I said, I'm going to high school like party thing with my old buddies from high school, so I don't know how much work I'm gonna be doing this weekend. But if you want to check it out, I got that and some prop bets. I'll probably do those before I go.
Awesome. Yep, all that good stuff. A few of my plugs would be get in the Deposit Kingdom League. That will fill up, I'm guessing, by tomorrow morning. So please don't complain to me when it fills. Please get in it. I just refreshed it. We are up to almost 300. So about 100 more spots left in that before that bad boy fills. I'll be back at 2:30 with Spags. We're having Smiz on Splash Play. Got some fun stuff planned. I will be back, of course, on Sunday morning to check in on all the updated stuff with injuries, ownership. And then I have to go to my nephew's christening, Brian, at 1 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. I am tilting already.
Whoa, that's
Whoa. Yes, my thoughts exactly.
Okay.
As always, subscribe to Run the Sims, get 10% off. All this sim talk, we cannot juggle all these variables in our head. That's why we need the Sims to help us out. You also get access to the Run the Sims channel in the Deposit Kingdom Discord as well, where we share lots of our lineup and play ideas each week. It's a great time. So for Brian, I'm Peter. Good luck this week. We'll see you guys in a bit.